Okay, anatomy of a neuron, second tutorial. Um, okay, now these diagrams are in your textbook, and you should be able to follow along with those. The neuron, there's myelinated neurons are neurons where Schwann cells, which I said in the last tutorial is the one glial cell I want you to know. Glial cells are nerve cells that support neurons, which are here. This is the neuron. And supporting the neuron would be glial cells like Schwann cells. And the Schwann cell, if we can find it here, number 7, makes myelin. Myelin insulates the neuron. In particularly, it insulates the axon. If I see the axon here, look at the myelin. It's the insulating coat on the axon. It allows the conduction to be faster. A larger diameter as well as myelin allows the conduction to be faster. The little gaps between are referred to nodes of Ranvier. They're little gaps. As we're going to see that impulses that are myelinated jump from gap to gap. We're going to see that later on. That's called saltatory conduction. The neurolemma is this thin sheet around the myelin that allows for regeneration. So if you get a paper cut, okay, you're not permanently going to be paralyzed because the myelemma allows the neuron to be regenerated. But that is for white matter or myelinated neurons. We sometimes refer to this as white matter. But for regions like in your brain that are gray matter, that are unmyelinated, there is no regeneration. So if you have a spinal cord injury in a car accident, you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life because there's no neurolemma to regenerate those neurons in gray matter in your spinal cord. Now, this is a very interesting picture. Here's a newborn. The number of neurons stays the same. Well, what is growing over the years is the dendrites. The branches are growing. The branches are growing. Every time this little baby learns, new branches are forming, just like you're learning this information, and you're going to create new branches in your brain to make connections between the different neurons in your brain. You've got this diagram here, the cell project, and I kind of wanted you to just get some notes put into this once you print it off. It's just a good way to learn. The branch projections, the axon hillock, cell body that connects the axon where postsynaptic potentials are summated. We're going to look at that in another video. The Schwann cells, the axon terminals, the cell body, the gap junctions we've talked about, the nodes of Ranvier, the myelin sheath, and the axon. What way does the impulse go? It goes from the dendrites down the axon to the axon terminals. And we call this axon transmission when a nerve fires, and it's an electrochemical transmission. Let's take a look at this question here. Structure 1 is an interneuron. Okay, so this is our interneuron. Notice that it is unmyelinated. How do we know that? Because it is gray. It makes gray matter. There's no Schwann cells. It's part of the central nervous system. Well, then what is structure 2 and 3? Structure 2, structure 3. Now there's two hints here. Structure 2 has a cell body on the outside. We learned that that would make that a sensory neuron. A lot of students aren't going to get that, but they can look at this. Oh, those are hairs, aren't they? And they would have a sensory receptor. So this would have to be a sensory neuron. And this over here is an effector, a muscle. So this here would have to be a motor neuron. Now, I find this question very tricky because 3 points to 2 places. It starts here, though, unmyelinated, and then it becomes myelinated. See the Schwann cells? Impulse is going to go this way and that way. Afferent, E for exit, efferent. So the best answer here is sensory. A lot of students would do this one though. Myelinated, non-myelinated. No, remember only number neuron 1 is unmyelinated. Okay, try these questions. Neurofibromatosis is a genetic disorder characterized by the growth of tumors called neurofibromas. Result in uncontrolled growth cells that produce myelin. Well, the cells that produce myelin are the Schwann cells. So I haven't even looked at the question. Those are glial cells. That's myelinated. The structures that are affected, well, Schwann cells produce myelin where? They produce myelin on the axon. Axons of white matter. Two types of neurofibromatosis have been identified. Type 1 tumors form around nerves in the peripheral nervous system. Okay, remember peripheral nervous system? We've got the somatic and we've got the autonomic. Somatic is voluntary. Sensory and motor neurons. Autonomic is the fight or flight, sympathetic or parasympathetic. Okay, so neurons that are affected by are autonomic neurons and no interneurons. That's central nervous system. Neurons in the brain, no, that's central nervous system. See how we can do this order of elimination. Neurons in the brain, no. Order of elimination is C. Okay, we'll look at this next session.